John's still playing music like I'm going to sing or something. That would be a miracle. My God, LA church all day long. Woo! I mean, some of you have been going since 6 o'clock this morning. And then we had the YCLC with 2 great lectures by Madoka and Kengo. And then I worry about the roof after all that music. Oh yeah, the tiles fell down. That was some powerful music. But I'm telling you, the 2 Rebeccas in the band are better. And Sister Nancy now goes like a professional singer, isn't she? Amazing. I really like that young girl, Gloria, 16 years old. My goodness. My goodness. She sang 2 great songs, How Great Is Our God and All Is Well With My Soul. All is well with my soul is from the Bible, Psalm 42. It's one of my favorite Bible quotes. So I promised Pasquale that I would keep it short today. I told him I was supposed to speak for 3 hours, but I will cut it down to 2.5 because you've had a full day. Okay? You want 3 hours. Okay. All right, you can blame Pasquale then. Amazing, amazing. I want to tell you my favorite joke. A man ran into a friend of his in 1977. And he said, "Boy, you look really happy today. What's going on?" His friend said, "Don't you realize? Today is July 7th, 1977. And it's my son's 7th birthday." And he said, "I'm so excited. I went to the racetrack and I bet $77 on horse number 7 in the 7th race. And guess what? It came last." Huh? Old joke. You've heard it before. Okay. Pasquale's heard it all before. Okay, I went to a prayer breakfast in Oakland, California some years ago, and there was our senator was there. She was the main speaker. And she brings with her, wherever she goes, her cameraman. And the cameraman happened to be, his seat was next to mine at the breakfast table. And so while she was speaking, the cameraman was reading the manual for his camera. How many of you have ever read a manual for your cell phone or your computer or any electronics? You nerds. Mine are all, these days they're all online, of course, but, most people don't read that stuff, right? So I asked this man, how long you been a cameraman? He said, 25 years. And I said, "Oh, you got a new camera?" I thought that's why he's reading the manual. He said, "No, I've had this for a couple of years." I said, "Well, why are you reading the manual?" He said, "If you don't read the manual, you only get about 1/8 of the percentage of its worth. You're not getting the full value unless you know everything that it can do." Pretty good, I thought. And it led me to ask him, do you have a manual for your life? Based on what you told me, if you don't read some manual that guides your life, you're only getting 1/8 of the value of your life. What's your manual? Where do you get the instructions for your life? I asked him. He said, I'm not a Christian. I don't read the Bible. And I said, okay, well, where do you get your instructions from? He said, I just follow my conscience. Which sounds good, right? Oh, just follow your conscience. But then I said to him, do you think it's good for everybody to just follow their conscience? He said, yeah. I said, oh, well, in the city of Oakland, California, there are around 200 murders a year. So there's 200 people going around whose conscience told them it's okay to kill somebody. And how many people their conscience told them it's okay to steal, to cheat, to do all kinds of bad things. So if we just say everybody follow your conscience, what kind of world will we have? We'll have exactly what we've got. Right? And he said to me, we need a universal set of guidelines that we can all agree upon. And I said, bingo! You got it. But I asked him, who should make those guidelines? Good question, right? And I said, okay, your camera manual, who made the manual? The people who created the camera. They are the ones who have the authority to give the guidelines. Nobody else. So, using that logic, who has the authority to give the guidelines for humanity how to live? Only our Creator. Backed him into a corner. He couldn't get out. And he said to me, okay, well, what are the guidelines? I told him the guidelines are the 10 Commandments. Do we have a PowerPoint of the 10 Commandments? You've been too busy to put it up. Okay. Anybody know the 10 Commandments? Oh, there it is. I was going to give you a quiz. Okay, now it's up there. 10 Commandments. You shall have no other gods before me. Number 1. Number 2, read it out. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. Number 6. Number 7. Number 8. Number 9. Number 10. You know, this is one of the few things that Christians, Jews, and Muslims agree upon. It's known as the universal code. The universal code through which at least Christian, Muslim, and Jew should live. This comes from, the 10 Commandments are in the Bible twice, in Exodus and Deuteronomy. They're slightly different, and Catholics have their own version of it, but it's known as the universal code of values. My question is, why don't we use the universal code? Just think for a moment, if everybody followed this code, you know what would happen if everybody strove to follow this code in their life? We would eliminate crime. We'd eliminate divorce. We'd eliminate hatred and racism and all the bad stuff in the world. Because we'd be practicing this. It's called the Decalogue, the 10 Commandments. Okay, why do people not read the instruction manual? They think they don't need it. They think it's too long. I get the manual and I go, what? That's like a Bible. I'm not reading all that. And they think I'll figure it out for myself. That is our natural condition. We want to figure things out for ourselves. That's not bad. But have you ever heard this? If all else fails, read the instructions. I'm telling you, all else is failing. We might want to read the instruction manual. We might want to get back to basics. We might want to get back to the universal code of conduct. Oh, but 10, that's too much. Okay, so they asked Jesus, what's the most important of the commandments? He said, love God with all your heart and soul and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Vertical and horizontal. The 10 Commandments, the first 5 are vertical. They're dealing with our relationship with God, with our parents, the vertical standard. The second 5 are dealing with how we relate to other people. Love God with all your heart and soul and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Simple. What's wrong with you people? Follow the instructions, man. Because I'm telling you, humanity does not have a good track record. My wife likes studying history, these videos from Japan, and she's telling me today, oh my God, you know what they did in the past? It's horrible, the past. It's horrible, the present. If we don't follow the code of conduct, we'll make a mess. There are certain natural laws we must follow. If we violate the laws, there is a problem. Do you know one of our Japanese brothers in Leda, you know the Leda project in South America? Amazing. Maybe the most amazing thing in our church, in my opinion. But one of our Japanese brothers who didn't know much about animals and farming, he tried, get this, he tried to milk a bull. You understand? A bull is a male cow which doesn't have milk. The bull was not happy with him. What are you doing down there? The bull picked him up and ran him into the wall. Almost killed him. He ended up in hospital with a punctured lung. There are consequences to breaking natural law. There are consequences to breaking spiritual laws. So maybe we need to go back to the basics and study God's Word, which is where we find the law. Because just believing and following your conscience will lead us mostly into trouble. God didn't trust Adam and Eve just with their conscience. He gave them one commandment. What was it? Oh, you've heard this before. Don't eat the fruit. Don't eat the fruit, and then you're free. Then you can live a life together with God, and you can live in a beautiful environment, and you can populate the earth with beauty. Don't just follow your conscience. follow the law. Beautiful. How's your conscience? Getting better. It must have been pretty bad. Oh, no. Sorry. Do you know, Plato talked about the story of the ring. Anybody know the story of the ring? Okay, you don't know Plato. Harry Potter had the invisible cloak. Remember that? The invisible cloak, you put this on, it's like a big blanket, you put it on, and nobody could see you. Here's my question to you. If you had an invisible cloak, what would you do? Would you do good with that? Or would you walk into the bank, nobody sees you, and, I thought of a lot of things I could do if I just had that invisible cloak. Where is it? We need to follow the universal code of conduct given by God. We need to get back to it all the time. We need a common understanding that fits everybody, everybody. Not just people of this race or this church or this whatever, but everybody. It's got to fit everybody to make it universal. Do you know why people love soccer so much? Because it's great. Oh, besides that, you can play anywhere in the world because there's a common set of rules. You can go to South America, or Europe, or Russia, wherever you want. There's a common set of rules. Imagine if every country had its own rules. And then two countries try to play against each other, but they've got different rules. Is it going to work? It's a disaster. To play a game, you got to agree upon the rules. To play in life, you got to agree upon the rules. Otherwise, it's a disaster. That's what we've got today. It's getting crazier and crazier. People not agreeing upon the rules. Therefore, it's a good time for us to re-examine the rules. What are the rules? Because clearly, it's out of control. Moses brought the 10 Commandments. Jesus made it simple. Love God with all your heart and soul and mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. What did true parents bring? Forgive, love, and unite. Yeah, nice slogan. Good bumper sticker. True parents brought family pledge. Family pledge is our code of conduct. They also brought, that's the things we should do. They also told us what we shouldn't do. We should not hurt the heart of another person. If we just live like that, don't hurt the heart of another person, already we've got good relationships. Anybody been hurt by somebody else? Miserable. Anybody hurt somebody else? Oh, bad people. As much as it depends on me, I should not hurt the heart of another person. I should not violate the lineage. I should not have chapter 2 problems. And I should not misuse public things, including creation. That's the don'ts. So we should follow the universal code of conduct. And we should make communion and community. Communion with God, that means connection, empowered by God. then you can make amazing relationships with other people. We need communion and community. But we need a set of laws, guidelines that help us to accomplish. Don't just go by your conscience. Your conscience is not that good. Sorry. In unification language, we call it a foundation of faith and a foundation of faith and substance. It's the same thing since the beginning. The language changes, but it's the same thing. God is trying to get us to do this and this. Love God and love people. End of story. Love God and love people. So, we had a Christian revival here today, right? Really, I was going to say wild. Powerful. Powerful. I belong to a mega church organization. They think I'm a pastor of a mega church. Why are you laughing? Because I'm Sub-Region 5 director, and if you add up all the members in Sub-Region 5, that puts me into the mega church category. I always feel like a fraud when I'm there, 2 weeks ago, we have a once a month meeting, online meeting. 2 weeks ago, we had the meeting, and the meeting was, what are we going to do with post-Christian America? Do you know what post means? If English isn't your first language, post means what's happening after. These are mega church pastors. They have congregations in the thousands. And they're coming to recognize we are beyond Christianity now. We're entering a new phase called post-Christianity. I was so happy to hear this. Why? I've been promoting our church as a post-Christian church for a long time. Why? Because what is the purpose of Christianity? It's one thing: to prepare for the coming Messiah. Guess what? He came. He came. What was the purpose of the Jewish faith? To prepare for Jesus to come. Once Jesus came and they didn't follow, the Jewish faith was spread all over. Right? They lost their foundation. They lost their temple. Christianity's in that phase right now. They are to prepare for the coming Messiah, but he's here. They are both here. And if they miss the time of their visitation, then the Christian foundation will collapse. And you only have to look in America today to see collapse. So we're now in a post-Christian age. That's not bad. That's good. Because Christians have to get to the point where they ask, why are we losing foundation here? Why are we losing power in America? Why are we losing the ability to affect our education and our government and our medicine and everything? They need to check. Do you know, when Father Moon came to America in 1965, one of the people that he met was former President Dwight Eisenhower. Do you know about that? 1965. At that time, we had very few members in America. Maybe 100. And even the ones who we had, mostly were very spiritually open, spiritually led. And I always say people who are spiritually led in are usually easily spiritually led out. So when Father arrived in America, the number of members and the type of members wasn't so inspiring for him. But he went to see Dwight Eisenhower, former president. Not too long ago, before 1965, he was the president. And according to Bohee Park, who was his translator, he said to Dwight Eisenhower, "My goal is not just a church and church attendance. My goal is to bring God into everything in people's lives, to make God the center of all life. Religion should not be confused with church attendance. Religion is a way of life, and it must be lived actively every day." That's what he told Dwight Eisenhower. And Dwight Eisenhower responded, he said, "I'm all for it. I agree." I can only imagine how encouraged Father was at that time. He'd just come to America. He meets the former president, and the former president is endorsing his idea. So we know True Parents' goal was never to build a church. It's more about building what's known as a civic religion. A religion that affects not just the people in the church, but the whole society. That's what True Parents are about. I mean, is our church ready to receive everybody in Los Angeles? If they all came? Who remembers September the 11th? 9/11, what year was that? 2001, right? Who remembers that time? You remember where you all were when you found out? I was in bed. So somebody called me. My point is, the weekend after 9/11 was the day of the biggest church attendance in American history. The Sunday after. But churches weren't ready. Churches weren't ready to receive all those people. Churches were packed. I mean, standing room only in many, many kinds of churches. People were looking for answers. Why is this happening? The problem was they came, they didn't receive guidance that would bring them back. They came once, and then it just dwindled. But think about, brothers and sisters, we should have the attitude, our goal is to educate everybody in the universal code of conduct, so that God is at the center of everybody's life. Whether they come to our church or any church, that's secondary. First is, I put God first. That God is the center of my life. Our task is to be able to educate people. Our task is to be ready to educate people. Father used to talk to us about one day so many people will come to find out about True Parents. And when they come, they're going to ask, is there any blessed families in my neighborhood? Yeah, there's one that lives down the block. Okay, I'm going to go see how that blessed family lives. Uh-oh. Wait a minute. This is what Dr. Young's talking about these days. We have to be a model. You don't just teach by words, you teach by example. So we have to get ready for that. In the meantime, in this post-Christian America, the values of Christianity are being kicked out. Do you know in 1980 the Supreme Court made it unlawful to post the 10 Commandments in schools? After all, we don't want our kids following that. Do not kill, do not steal. We don't want our kids getting brainwashed here, you know. So, extrapolate from 1980, what do we have today in our schools? Mass shootings and all kinds of bad stuff going on. If we follow the Word of God, there are good consequences. If we don't, there are bad consequences. End of story. But today, in this post-Christian America, nobody wants to take responsibility. You know, two of our children are policemen. Policeman, policewoman. So they arrest people on a daily basis. Almost every single person that gets arrested says to my children, to the policeman, I know the law, I know my rights. And my kids are thinking, you don't know nothing. You don't know the law. But everybody says it. And the next thing that comes out of most people's mouth is, you're a racist. Or blame somebody else. It's all blame. My daughter said, you know, out of 100 people that get arrested, maybe 1 or 2 take responsibility. Take responsibility, say, I made a mistake, I'm sorry. But most people want to blame something, someone. We're living in a victim mentality situation here. Everybody's a victim. We got to take responsibility. Many years ago, a professor who heard about true parents and came to work with true parents, his name was Richard Rubenstein. Anybody remember Richard Rubenstein? He became the title, president of University of Bridgeport, some title, the top man at University of Bridgeport. He wrote a book called The Age of Triage, Fear, and Hope in an Overcrowded World. I'm one of these people who reads these books. I read his book. I don't recommend it. It was hecka boring and hecka long. But this is what I remember of the whole book, the last chapter. The last chapter, he wrote about all of the problems in the world that are taking place and the history of genocide and how so many people have done bad things. It was depressing. The last chapter was, is there a way out? In that chapter, he said, conventional Western religion does not have the answer of the way out. What we need is a religious revolution which incorporates all religion, all people, which brings together everyone and brings them together to have a personal revival themselves. Then it becomes a corporal revival of the world. You got to be revived yourself so you can have an effect in the world. This is what he said is the only hope. Then he found what true parents were doing and he said, that's what I want to join. And I believe Father told him, don't become a church member. But, let's work together. And he worked together with us, with PWPA, with Ori, PWPA, and then the University of Bridgeport, many things. I think he passed away. He got inspired by the work of true parents to bring together people centered on the Word of God that was universal for everybody. He said, whoever can make a change in the world has to go beyond Western and Eastern, has to go beyond poor and rich, has to go beyond the saved and the damned, has to be able to embrace everybody. And the specialty of our movement is to convene people together from different backgrounds, different philosophies, different understandings. That's what's great about our movement. That's what's great about True Parents. That's what's great about True Mother now in all of her activities. And True Mother is working now to pull together a diverse group of people who will go together with her to North Korea and end the separation of North and South Korea. Bringing people together is the job of the Messiah. That's what True Parents are all about. So, like Richard Rubenstein, I'm happy to work with True Parents. I'm happy to promote a universal code of conduct. I believe the kingdom of heaven is not made up of lots of rules. Not hundreds and hundreds of rules. You can follow your conscience when your conscience is following the code of conduct. Then you're free to use your conscience. You're free to express yourself in whatever way you want, including how you want to worship God. We can all do it differently. As I always tell the clergy at the prayer breakfast in the Bay Area, we all worship God differently. You should do it your way. You do it your way. You do it your way. And we'll keep doing it God's way. When we're following the code of conduct, then we're free to express God's creativity, God's love, because we're not hurting anybody's heart, because we're not violating my lineage or anyone else's lineage, and because we're not misusing creation. Brothers and sisters, I want to ask you two questions. I want you to discuss these questions together. Number one, what would you do if you had an invisibility cloak? I've got one backstage. I'm going to, give it to somebody, but I want to check who's going to do good. What would you do with an invisibility cloak? And what would happen if the whole world accepted True Parents? Dr. Durst always asked me this. What would happen if we had the miracle happen overnight? People woke up tomorrow and the presidents of every country says, True Parents are the way, let's follow True Parents. What would happen? Are we ready to change the world together? How would that be? Because many of us who follow True Parents still have a hard time. Oh, is that only me? Thank you. Thank you, Darlene. Ask those two questions. What would you do with an invisibility cloak? And what would we do if another phenomenon like 9/11 happened, where hundreds of people came to this church? What would we do? How would we not only help the individuals to change, but how would we influence society? What's your plan, tribal messiahs? What would we do? We need to promote the universal code of conduct, which is the equalizer. We've got to agree on a set of rules. Otherwise, we'll continue to make chaos. And now the chaos becomes more and more crazy, more and more costly. Aju? Do I pray? Should I pray? Is that what we usually do? Huh? Yeah, after I pray. Okay? Okay, please join me in prayer. Heavenly Parent, I pray for Pasquale, who is changing day by day. I pray for us all, Heavenly Parent, that we can all understand and follow your will. Every day we can recommit to understanding your word, understand your guidance for us, and then live up to it. Really go for it. Really become heavenly sons and daughters. I pray we can become like that and be a shining example to the world. It's only your will, it's only your word, it's only your code of conduct that can change this world. We are fortunate to have met our true parents. We are fortunate that through our true parents we met Jesus Christ. We are fortunate that through our true parents, through Jesus, we met Moses. We are fortunate that we have your word to guide us. I only pray that your word becomes substantial in our life. From this day forward, we commit to being the kinds of sons and daughters who bring you comfort and joy. And I pray this with all my brothers and sisters. Adieu. Okay, please take a moment and discuss with your neighbor the 2 points I made. What would you do with an invisibility cloak? And what would the world be like if everybody suddenly accepted true parents?